Tonight's news is, of course, dominated by the spending cuts announced in Westminster today. Let's recap now on some of the points.
Almost 500,000 public sector jobs will go. £7 billion is being taken away from benefits claimants. Housing's being cut.
There will be fewer police officers and fewer prison places. Councils' budgets will be slashed.
Rail fares will go up, bus fares too. The state retirement age will be raised to 66 for men and women in 10 years' time.
But some benefits, like free TV licences for the over 75s, free bus travel for the elderly and the winter fuel allowance, will all be kept.
Well, our political correspondent Phil Hornby is live at Westminster for us now. Phil, a very busy afternoon.
Certainly has been. Some of our region's MPs are with me now. John Denham, former Cabinet Minister, Shadow Cabinet Member. What do you make of what's gone on?
I think the coalition government is being quite reckless. Of course the deficit needs to be dealt with, but they're going at this far too fast, far too deeply, and it's not only going to wreck people's services and the livelihoods of many families, we're not going to see the growth that we need to recover.
But we do need some cuts.
Of course we do, yes. Yes.
Everyone's agreed on that, aren't they, Caroline Lucas? We need cuts?
Well, I'd be certainly happy to cut things like the Trident nuclear submarine programme, but I think essentially what we need to look at is how do we address the deficit most effectively, and I still think it's actually through jobs. It's through getting people back into work, not throwing out of people. We've got 500,000 people out of work announced in the public sector in this announcement today. That will have at least as many people out of work in the private sector as a knock-on effect. This is not the way to get out of the deficit. This is the way to deepen it.
So this could deepen the problem, Rehman, Chishti, lead to another recession?
No, not at all. I think what we have to look at, it's a tough budget, it's a tough statement, it's a fair statement. We have to look at the IMF in terms of what they said. And I think it's taken decisions which Labour was too weak to take those decisions in terms of welfare reform. 7 billion, we've made sure we've cut that to ensure that those who can work, those who can't work will be supported, but to ensure that work pays. And I think we're all in it together. And I think it's about making the right decisions, which is what we're doing.
Not going to be painless, are they? Some people are going to be very, very badly hurt by these.
I think everyone has to take their fair share, and I think in terms of the banking levy, which goes further than what the previous government did, because it was the bankers who got us into this position, and I think it's about everyone taking their fair share.
Well, let's not forget that there's literally billions of pounds out there in tax evasion, tax avoidance, tax not being collected. That should be a priority. I think we should be looking at much more serious attention to a banker's levy, a much more serious one than either of these two parties announced, a Robin Hood tax. These are the things that would really get the economy moving again, not slashing jobs.
And the truth is that the coalition is actually going to take twice as much money off children and families with children as they're going to take from the bank, so it's not fair. The figures they produced themselves today show that it's the poorest families who will pay most.
It's because of the mess your government left, that's what they're saying.
No, let's tell you what we did when the world banking crisis hit was we had a choice. We could either shut everything down, shut the services down, put people out of work, make people lose their homes, or borrow to make sure that we recovered as quickly as possible. It was the right decision. Now you have to get the deficit down, but you've got to do it at the right rate, and the coalition is going far too fast, there's going to be far too much damage.
Sounds like the protests here are starting already, Caroline Lucas, but what can you do about it? What can you do in Brighton to fight these cuts?
Well, there's a really big movement growing in Brighton, lots of different parts of the unions, but also community groups all getting together to fight them. And I think the crucial thing to do is to get the voices of those people who, for example, are now not going to be eligible for the housing benefit that they've normally been eligible for. Let's get the voices of those people who are hit the hardest by this, because it is the poorest, it is the women, it's not fair, the government's wrong.
So you're going to stand firm, yeah?
It's a fair and a just statement today. We'll look at it in terms of the increase in education funding, increase in terms of health funding, so the vulnerable will be protected and supported.
Thank you all very much indeed. Sounds like London behind me is grinding to a halt. We'll be back in a few minutes.